More broken promises. A community manager who has already been sacked from the team once, but a plethora of good news and developments for Wurm Online. This is the news. Let's talk about it. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Bloody Drongo, and I am continuing my quest to document the new era of Wurm Online. And today we've got some big news with a new community manager being announced a little bit earlier this week on Thursday. And Army here is the new community manager. Now, Army is definitely a character who has been around in the community for a long time, but I don't think I've ever had any interactions whatsoever with this person over my 17 odd years of playing the game. So I was very curious to kind of look into their background and understand where they're coming from. So this was all announced in a post earlier in the week. In here, it says, Army gives a brief introduction to themselves. Little weird thing here with saying, oh, this is my general profile. It's a weird way to introduce yourself, but apparently they have a quirky sense of humor. So, weird sense of humor disclaimer up front. But they're 25 years old, from Germany, and they've been playing since 2012. And they have been a forum and game master for War Thunder and Crossouts. They are a Wurm Unlimited modder. They prefer cats over dogs, and their real name is Hans. So yeah, that's the basics of them. Apparently they started playing Wurm when they were only 13 years old, and they've kind of grown up with the game, and we love, I'm very much in the same position myself, so I'm, pretty excited about this. So, but I mean, they've been around for a long time, so I was curious to look into them. So the first thing to note is, as they mentioned, they've been around for a long time. Their forum account has been around since December 27th, 2012. And looking back at their posting history, we can see that they have contributed to various projects over the years through Wurm Unlimited and also through the Xanadu map back in the 2014 era. Now, looking into this, it became quickly apparent that it appeared to me as if Army had some kind of official standing to me within the team, judging off the posting history and also activity on the bug boards and the community assistance tab. Now, looking into that a little bit further and having spoken to some people, it appears as though Army was on the Wurm team previously as a community assistant, which is a pretty junior role. And it looks as though from even the very early days, going back like 5 years ago, Army has been looking for a way onto the team. And we can see that kind of illustrated here from this post in 2017, basically complaining that Buddha, who was the game manager at the time, hadn't been answering their emails requesting to apply to the Wurm Online team. Unfortunately, we don't know what this image is. I assume it's like just a screen capture of their email to Buddha. However, we can tell here by the comments that basically they're saying, hey, I want to apply for a developer position or find out the position to apply for a developer position. It seems as though after this in 2017, they basically went over to Wurm Unlimited and continued their work in Wurm Unlimited up until present day, although it seems as though they haven't been the most active, but they also apparently played on Epic as well. Now, then after this, they've recently come out with a Valorant International. So this was posted 8 hours ago while I was sleeping, and we'll unpack this a little bit more. But before we move on, we're going to wind back the clock here to 2014, approximately 2013, 2014. So before I say all this, I want to mention that this leak here, this is again coming from the Not My Wurm Online account on X or Twitter. And they've leaked some more internal screenshots, as we can see here. I want to mention that it is worth keeping in mind here that realistically, from what they've said, they're 25 years old now. These are actions and screenshots that would have happened almost 10 years ago now, meaning that realistically, at best, Army was like 15, 16 years old. So I think it's very hard to kind of hold this against anybody when they're that young. I know I did things and said things when I was 15, 16 years old that I definitely would not be proud of now. And also, I would not say indicate the type of quality person I am now as well. But I only bring this up because it is an interesting precedent, because the Wurm Online team typically has stayed away from rehiring ex-staff members into staff roles. So that's the only reason why I bring this up, because it does set an interesting precedent. So basically what's happened here is back in 2014, it was noted that there was an incident with Mr. Gary, Miss Gary, Mr. Gary, which are some alt accounts that were created to harass a player who was fairly well known on Epic at the time, called Mr. Gary. And then talking about the fact that they were going to have to remove a CEA from the role because they had been creating troll accounts to anonymously troll. So a staff member creating troll accounts anonymously, sock puppet accounts, to troll other players in the game, and basically talking about how this is a breach of, you know, expectations for the community. So the Arch Game Master at the time, Ohana here, basically saying, yeah, I don't think this should be acceptable staff behavior. And then Mama Darkness here confirming in March of 2015 that Army had been sacked or removed from the community assistance role, and noting that he'd been largely inactive for a while, and basically just saying that he was unable to work with his mentor, Necro Darkslayer, at the time to resolve any issues. So this, again, I want to emphasize that this is like 10 years ago, and Army would have been very, very young at the time. I don't think this is anything that we should be holding against them, but I think it's also worth bringing up in the conversation of, hey, who is this person and what kind of contributions have they made to the community in the past? So that's why I bring this up and thought this is worth mentioning. And especially since I know a lot of people in the Wurm community have been kind of questioning, okay, who is this person? They've obviously been around for a while, but I've not really heard of them too much. So yeah, that's all I've been able to find out so far, but they've obviously had aspirations to be on the team since very, very early in their Wurm journey, and also have been wanting to get back onto the Wurm team now for quite some time, specifically in a developer role. Considering they did development in Wurm Unlimited, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe Army is looking to try and transition from community management into some kind of developer paid role or something like that. It does seem to be, from the community post and the response to some of the questions that have been asked about the community role, about whether the position is paid, because historically the community manager role for Wurm Online was a paid role. It hasn't been clarified or answered by Army. If we look here, this post, I think it's on page 3. Yeah, here we go. So basically said, I'm under contract, but I'm not going to disclose how much I'm being paid or whether I'm being paid at all, which is fair enough. My personal question and my personal thought is that it doesn't really matter how much they're being paid, as long as they're happy with the arrangement and as long as they're not being taken advantage of. My personal concern is that with the community manager role, it is an extremely involved and important role within an online game, and it is one that deserves, and the community deserves, somebody to be in that role who is able to divert their full attention to that, and that means that it is in a full-time capacity. So I have asked that question, and up to this point it has been not clarified. So we don't know yet whether Army is in the role as a full-time whether they're going to be putting full-time hours into this or part-time hours. That remains to be seen. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we've got our first Valorant International from Army as of this week, and there's a whole bunch of things to unpack from this. So we'll dig right into it. The first part is talking about touching on the Rift update again, with many aspects of the Rift being reworked and improved, and basically reiterating that, leading with the updates. Next is probably something that's a little bit more interesting from my perspective, because it is at least new. This is not new. This is kind of just echoing the idea that, you know, we are making progress thanks to J2. And then we've got marketing changes. So Wurm Online has a Instagram and TikTok now, and they have been posting some content on there over the last little while, and they basically Army goes through to explain a little bit about it. The main goal at the moment is to bring more players into the game and make them stay. In order to achieve that goal, we have to improve on marketing, which I overall agree with. Fortunately, the parent company is helping out to that end and has started working on partnering up with content creators such as Crafty Joe. So if you don't know Crafty Joe, Joe has been around now for a little while in the content creator space with a YouTube channel, 97 subscribers, and has, you know, got a decent backlog of content. With Wurm Online Iron Man, and also creating like little tips and trick video and some short form content as well. It's a bit of an unproven format, and one of the things about Crafty Joe's content, which I think is worth mentioning in the conversation because it kind of becomes a little bit relevant later on, is that Crafty Joe does use an AI voice to narrate all of their content. So it's for me, it's not personally my style of content that I enjoy, because I generally prefer content that is more personality driven. And one of the problems with using an AI narration tool is that it does remove that personality aspect from the mix. But that being said, I do think there is room for this style of content to work within the overall ecosystem of different platforms, and in particular places like TikTok, I think, is where this type of content could still work. So yeah, that's Crafty Joe. Back on the 30th of last month, we've got this video here.
Hey, it's Crafty Joe.
So Crafty Joe, on the 30th of last month, basically came forward and posted this first TikTok here. Got 9,000 views, which is really nice. And basically announcing the official Wurm Online TikTok. As you can see here, it's got 76 followers and 974 likes at this time. And it's a really interesting strategy here. And I don't know if it's a platform, a intentional strategy, or whether it's just kind of like an accidental strategy, but it's actually somewhat effective. So for those of you who may not be familiar with TikTok, one of the things that is really to try and incentivize people to use it, both as creators and as consumers, they try to get people to be on the platform and give people a little bit of dopamine. So one of the things that they do to entice creators to keep producing content on their platform, TikTok will generally algorithmically boost any account's first post. So you will likely see it hit at least 1,000 views, if not more, especially if it's in a niche market such as MMO. So you can see here it got 9,000 views, which is very, very solid. That's kind of like a well-performing short, in my opinion, especially for one that is not got any followers. You can see the next one was posted, I think, the next day pretty much, or a couple of days later, and this one only got 470 views. So even though the content is a little bit different, it's talking specifically about a monthly update, this is one of the things that you will find with TikTok, with the algorithm, where it kind of punishes you a little bit, or at least reveals your authentic viewership and engagement when you post on subsequent days. If you're posting daily, or, you know, every couple of days, it will basically, you won't get an algorithmic boost. However, if you leave it for about 5 days to 7 days in between posts, to try and incentivize people to keep on posting, creators to keep on posting content, they give those new posts every 5 or 7 days. When there's a gap, they give those posts a little algorithmic boost to try and push them back out there and try and bring this creator back in to keep producing content. And so you can see here that the next couple of views, or next couple of videos have gone 9,000, 5,000, 5,000. And these are all videos that have been posted roughly 1 to 2 weeks apart from each other. So taking advantage of the algorithmic boost that you get for inactivity. Now, this is a decent strategy, especially when you're trying to build up a platform. The downside to this is obviously that you really are masking your true engagement and your true audience by artificially inflating the view count. And then you've also got to factor in the idea that you're only at best going to be putting out 50 to 60 pieces of content every year. And TikTok is a platform that becomes the most powerful when you're putting out at least daily uploads or multiple uploads every day. That's when you really kind of gain traction and gain momentum, and you start to actually authentically grow your viewership and your viewer base. So really interesting strategy here. Again, I don't know if this is just accidental, but it is really worth considering. And I do think there is, and I've said this before, I know a lot of people have said, oh, you know, TikTok's a waste of time because people don't have the attention span for Wurm Online. I mean, I watch TikTok. I know a lot of other people who watch TikTok or short form content on YouTube Shorts or on Instagram Reels and things like that. And I think there is a space where this can work and it can reach a lot of people. TikTok is exceptionally good for reaching new people. And yeah, personally, I'm excited to see where this goes. The other platform that they've been posting on recently, it has been Instagram. Instagram has been a lot more, I kind of guess, underwhelming, 100 and 300 views here. This is kind of typical of Instagram. Instagram is an extremely difficult platform to grow, and I think it has much less opportunity to actually uptake into the, or convert actual people using the app into Wurm players. I think the chance of this working out is much, much lower. And I think it's not surprising that they've really only put a couple of kind of tester bits and pieces of content up here. Yeah, the other thing I think is worth noting is that they are putting update content on these platforms, which I don't think is the most powerful, because anybody who's watching the game for the first time isn't really going to care about a Rift update. You know, it's all meaningless to them. Like it just doesn't have any value. Whereas I think building time-lapse videos and all kinds of different stuff like that is accessible and understandable to a player who maybe hasn't seen Wurm before is definitely the way to go and increase these platforms. But yeah, Instagram as an investment, I don't think it's great, but it should be part of your overall growth strategy as a brand, so it makes sense. Now, interestingly, the Wurm Online YouTube account hasn't posted any shorts, which is very, very interesting to me and a little bit kind of questionable, because to me, YouTube is the one place where I think Wurm Online content is going to do the very best, and it's the one platform that they've not been putting new content onto. So maybe that's coming in the future, but as of yet, they've been focusing on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, they've obviously come to an agreement with Crafty Joe as to to doing that. So as well as this, they are going to be creating a new content creator affiliate program for the game named Wurm Online TV, which is basically, they're saying, is going to be replacing the Valorant Entertainment Network program, which, considering the new stated objectives, I think makes sense. Now, I know a lot of people have said that they don't like the name, and I think it makes sense. And the reason why I think it makes sense is because the Valorant Entertainment Network is basically a program that made sense to Wurm players. And I think at the time that existed, it was a program that was designed to increase engagement within the existing community. And that is why the name is suitable, because everybody who's familiar with the game already is going to know what Valorant is in relevance to Wurm, and the entertainment network means that it kind of encompasses all types of different content. Now, Wurm Online TV, their new focus is going to be creating content to bring and draw new players into the game, and so making it Wurm Online and then something makes a lot of sense to me, because it's going to say, hey, this is the game. And then we've got the TV at the end. Now, TV is, a lot of people have said, oh, well, this is a defunct term. Nobody really watches TV these days. Whatever. It's kind of like old school terminology. that's a fair point to some extent, but I do think, especially within the live streaming space, it's still relevant, because after all, we still have twitch.tv, which is the largest streaming platform in existence for live stream content, and a lot of the content that they appear to be featuring is live stream content, but it doesn't appear to be limited to that. So I'm a little bit surprised that it's not like Wurm Online Network or something like that, but I guess that sounds a little bit kind of cutesy or too official, I suppose. But this is nice and casual. I don't hate this. I don't love the logo, but that's pretty like here or there. Doesn't really matter too much. But I think this is a decent idea. I think the idea that they're going for here overall is smart, especially with their new stated goals of trying to appeal to new people. I think the real challenge that they're going to have is finding the content creators that have the ability to reach people outside of the existing community, because there's really not many of those. Like, I think maybe the only people that I can think of that have any real reach outside of the Wurm Online community is people like Factional Fight, who play games like World of Warcraft and 7 Days to Die and things like that, and then come back to Wurm frequently or semi-frequently, and Catspur, who has a very big audience, a little bit less active these days, but again plays 7 Days to Die, Albion Online, things like that, and has a audience and reach that goes out past that. But again, that's kind of here or there, and that'll be something that'll be proven in time, I suppose. And so yeah, they're working closely with content creators. So yeah, it'll be interesting and exciting to see where they go with this. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but it's somewhat exciting. Now, we've got the new website. Has finally launched. My goodness, we've waited months and months and months, but they have finally replaced the old just AI generated assets with new ones, which have been AI reimagined or remastered. So they're still they're authentic Wurm screenshots that have basically been remade by AI, and some of them look pretty good, some of them look less good in my opinion, but all of them are at least somewhat closer towards an accurate representation of the game, which is the number one most important thing. Again, it's kind of inexplicable to me that it has taken as long as it did to actually get this implemented, but I'm very glad that it has been. But a lot of people are still unhappy that they've used AI imagined screenshots and have commented that a lot of them don't look right. Some of them are better than others, in my opinion. And I'm a little bit confused why some people were surprised that this was going to be the case, because ultimately we knew this was going to happen. Because it had been publicly stated, and that Catspur was repolishing screenshots and remastering them with AI tools. And I think it's a reasonable approach, but a lot of people are very unhappy about the idea that they're kind of taking shortcuts wherever possible. And when you can take in conjunction the idea that a lot of the website was written by AI, and a lot of stuff was not true about what had been written by AI and hadn't been quality checked, and then leading into that, using the AI images on the website for the past 2 months, added into the fact now that they've gone in with a content creator who uses an AI generator for their voice for videos. That's their first official partnership with a content creator. And then also adding into this then the AI remastered images. A lot of people are unhappy about that. You can kind of see from the progression of those events that it kind of exacerbates those negative sentiments. I personally don't really care too much, as long as these are representative of the game, and I think overall they are. And they're, a lot of nice screenshots here, and I think Catspur's done a pretty good job overall with that. So, yeah, it's still not completely finished. It has been raised that Krista had promised that the new website version would be given a sneak peek to the community before it was launched to let players have their feedback on it, community feedback. Obviously, that has been reneged, and that promise has been, taken back by Krista. which I think is a shame, but apparently this is a bit of a recurring pattern now, is that they're having to go back on a lot of the claims that Krista has made, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on in more detail, but it is worth noting. Then we've got some good news in here that wormnode.com, a very useful and community driven website created by Drogos, he reached out to them with some concerns, because originally the new website was meant to launch with a community-driven hub aspect to it. I forget the exact terminology they used, but it would basically effectively run the risk of making Wormnode defunct. But apparently now they've made an official collaboration with Wormnode and Drogos, and my speculation from here is that it wouldn't surprise me that if they basically at this point, now that they've decided to officially collaborate and support this project, if this didn't become a plugin or some kind of direct integration into the Wurm Online website, because perhaps they've had some issues of making their own version of this, and maybe they underestimated the amount of time and effort it would make to make something like this. So it seems to me maybe, and this is pure speculation on my point, maybe they're just trying to leverage the existence of the current tool that exists by working with Drogos. But that's good news, because Drogos has, obviously spent a great deal of volunteer time to support the community, and it's good to see them getting the support that they deserve. So yeah. Then we have the update regarding community relations, basically saying, hey, this is kind of like going on for my introduction point from Army, and basically acknowledging that the current situation in the community is bad and that there's lots of open ends and lots of problems at the moment. Announcements of announcements never being made, empty promises, and too much silence from the team, resulting in bitterness, mistrust, and toxicity. It's good to see that Army has a realistic understanding of kind of where things are at the moment in terms of the community sentiments towards everything, although I am seeing a good amount of positivity, and I've also got a degree of cautious optimism in relation to some of these announcements. So he goes on to outline a few points that he basically says, this is how I plan to work. So basically saying talk, communication is key. The idea of being reserved and distanced in this position is absurd to me, yet I will avoid expressing my personal opinion as I'm primarily representing the staff team and the company. Makes sense. Keep it simple, clear, and easy to understand. Long and complex corporate talk won't convince anybody. That's definitely true. We've seen that with Krista. This community is smarter than that. Be open and honest. Sometimes decisions won't turn out as initially planned. This can be clearly communicated, especially with reasoning behind them. I agree with that. Stay involved, read chat, read Discord messages, and follow hot forum topics closely. See problems before they emerge and solve them right away if possible, which is, definitely a positive. Remain calm. I don't mind toxic people or explicit language. However, I won't tolerate any attacks towards other community or staff members. If you need to vent about something, tell me privately. Otherwise, the normal rules apply. I don't know if I feel like that's something you really want to invite, is like, hey, if you have like toxic viewpoints, PM me directly. I would just say, I personally would just say, hey, don't be toxic. You can give constructive feedback, but don't be an idiot about it. And they're going to be showing full commitment. So in some rare cases, it might be necessary for me to go the extra mile for players. I'm not afraid to poke other staff members with community concerns if they are truly reasonable. So yeah, a bit of an outline there. Basically, it boils down to just communicating, which is good. I mean, that's what a community manager is there to do overall. So we'll see. I think one of the problems with a community manager position is a lot of the time there is going to be negative sentiments about things that you have no control over, and also things that you can't talk about, and the inability of being able to comment and address concerns adequately can make the role of a community manager very, very difficult and quite frustrating and trying. So let's see if in 6 months from now, a year from now, whether we can measure up and say, okay, you know what, Army has lived up to what they've outlined here. But if they are able to do that, I think we'll be in a good place. Now, we've got some Q&As because we've got some common questions from Discord in the forums. So, number 1, Krista announced that he wants to share the financial situation of the game. It's been months without any update on this matter already. What is going on? So, this won't happen anymore. So, Krista once again has made a promise that will not be delivered upon to the community, which is a huge shame. After some internal discussions about everything that happened, Krista decided to leave the community interactions up to the team, especially as we have a dedicated community manager for this from now on. So, I mean, that you can still release that information without it being, handled by Krista. He doesn't need to be involved in that. Just release the financials. Like, it's not a big deal. I mean, I have always said, and even in my post in Town Square talking about, hey, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see the full financials for Game Chest Group. Sorry, not Game Chest Group. Code Club AB, which is the company that owns Wurm Online. In here, Army basically says, hey, if you want to check out the financial situation of the company, check out Game Chest Group. But that's not the point. Krista has said explicitly that Wurm Online and Code Club AB is making a month-on-month loss, and they need to turn that around. And the financials of Game Chest Group do not show that. And the publicly available information about Code Club does not show how that money is moving through that company. And a lot of speculation is that they are moving money from Code Club AB to the parent company to be able to mask the overall parent company's poor financial performance. So, huge shame here. I was really excited when Krista made this acknowledgement, but again, we're not entitled to this information. It was a good faith gesture by Krista, and it is just a shame that Krista is not going to be delivering on this, and there is not the willingness to actually follow through on this. So, unfortunately, yet another promise or assurance that has been broken. And certainly that's not going to increase the trust of the community. So there's still a long way to work from here, but at least we've got an answer that it's just not going to happen. So yeah, then we've got the status on the Defiance PMKs, the PvP rework. Apparently it's still in the works. So is the other roadmap features such as Goblin Camps. They're being put on the back burner, but they are still potentially coming in the future. Smaller content updates will be coming, and this is all just like talking about Samul again, and they're referencing stuff that Samul has talked about that we mentioned in a previous news video. Then we have they talk about what will happen to the Valorant Entertainment Network. So the marketing changes above. The Venn program will be replaced with Wurm Online TV, with the community manager being in charge of it. Details yet to be announced. So, yeah, I think it's interesting here that we've got the Valorant Entertainment Network. It's, yeah, I think it's a good step. I think overall, they're creating a new program. They're trying out some new strategies, and they're working with, some content creators, which is a good news. So, overall, reasonably positive news. Army finishes off with an uwu face down here, which it's just a style preference. I hate that. It's just like, that doesn't just, it just doesn't seem professional. Also, very small qualm here. The formatting is just really ugly. With these center headers, please center the text as well to go with this. You can have centered headers like this, but if the text isn't centered, it looks really, really, really bad. Also, with this, Army, if you're watching this image here with the transparent background, if you put it onto Twitter, the background isn't a true transparent image, so you just want to use this picture here by itself without the frame. The transparent background around it is not transparent. If you're using Twitter or X on light mode, it'll show it as a white background, but if you load it up on X, in dark mode, you'll see that it has a white background, so it's not true transparent. So just a little social media tip and or trick for you. Let's look at the website here quickly, because there is some other things that I briefly want to touch on after that namely, we now have a full team build out, and it looks as though from here, we haven't had any official clarification to this point, but it looks as though they're basically saying here that Samul and Pomona are essentially joint managers of the game. So they're not putting anybody in the overall product manager role or product director role, it seems like. Maybe they are still recruiting for it, who knows, and this is just temporary. But at the moment, Samul and Pomona are the joint managers of the team, and then it goes through and outlines the rest of the team, which I thought was interesting. Next, we have the community tab. Now, this originally led directly to the forums, but now it's built out with some different content. We got X, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Weirdly, we don't have a link to Instagram, even though that is one of the platforms that they've been active on. In fact, it's been more active than YouTube, so a question mark. Forum, Wiki, Discord, and they've also got these embeds. Now, these embeds are from Wurm streams that have been videos on demand. So this isn't live right now. These are embeds of other content creators. And these are, as far as I understand, these are not officially licensed or officially partnered streamers that they've embedded on the website here. And I've clarified with a couple of them. I've approached a few of the people that have been featured, had their videos on demand here embedded on the website, and just basically said, hey, are you actually officially affiliated with Wurm? And a couple of the people that I spoke to had just gone, what do you mean? I have not heard anything about Wurm Online TV. What are you talking about? So it looks like they've just taken a few VODs here to embed on here on the website. And then, basically saying, forum, we want to get you featured and spread the word with the affiliate program. So be interesting to see how exactly they structure that affiliate program. We'll see. Then we've got the list of official Wurm Online content creators. So I assume this will become a growing list. And as of the moment, Crafty Joe, as we mentioned earlier, is the only officially announced partner to Wurm Online. So who knows what to go, who knows what will go from here. They've also got some embeds for the TikToks that they've made already, with these little frames around them. And that's pretty much it. The other thing that I found was Wurm Online TV. I did go Googling because I wanted to see if anybody had used Wurm Online TV or whether there had been any official domains registered for it or anything like that. And it looks as though Wurm Online TV is not a new idea. There has been a couple of streamers, if you Google it, who actually have used the Wurm Online moniker and line as a product, I suppose. And one of the funnier ones that I've seen is this one here, which is like a 3 or 4 YouTube part series with like a Trump face cam overlay, talking about Wurm news. This one's talking about a boat race, which is just really bizarre. So hopefully Wurm Online TV can grow beyond this, which I just thought was really funny, which is why I included it. But overall, that's the news. That's the news for Wurm. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this, feel free to sub to the channel. Drop your thoughts below. Are you excited? Are you still feeling negative overall? I'm keen to hear everybody's thoughts about this. Thanks for watching. I've been Bloody Drongo, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.